It's my journey, it's your journey. You need my help and I need yours, 'cause we are following the Lord. It's my journey, it's your journey. But we won't make the trip alone, 'cause we know God will lead us home. It's our journey of faith. It's our journey of faith.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Super Saint Podcast. My name is Steve Bailey. Today, I have a special guest in studio, which is in my study in my house. Today, I have with me Catholic recording artist. Is that
something I've done?
Something that he's done. Michael John Poirier. So it's going to be a special treat today. We're going to talk about his ministry, what he does, and then whatever else we decide to talk about. So
yeah.
So tell me.
See where it goes.
Yeah. Tell us what you do.
Well, this weekend I got to sing at Mass here at your parish at St. Joseph's, and I have the honor of leading music at communion, which means a lot because I didn't believe in the Eucharist for 25 years. And then once I began to believe, it changed my life so much that it's a desire of mine to invite other people to let. A priest said, I can give you the Holy Eucharist, but I can't give you communion. That's up to you. And that has really struck me. So that's what I try to set an atmosphere for people to let the Eucharist become communion, to encourage them to enter into communion once they received, which I liken to not just receiving the gift, but opening the gift.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That was my favorite part that you said during Mass, that it's a gift, but you got to open it.
So that's the greatest honor, I would say. And then second to that would be getting to sing. So to have a chance to do that is a huge gift, because I didn't believe. It means a lot for me to encourage other people to let it unfold for them. And then the second thing I love to do is get to sing for someone who's in the process of passing away. And it does tie together with a story of my grandmother, which we were talking about earlier, because I didn't get to be there for my grandmother, who died in a violent way. It was not God's divine will, but his permissive will allowed it, because he knew he could bring some good out of it. And I can tell you, he's brought good out of that. And maybe one of those things is this, that I have a desire to go to someone and accompany them if they're in the process of dying. And I do that with music.
That's an intriguing gift to me that I've had the honor, I guess I would say honor of, for lack of a better way to describe it, playing for funerals. I've done that quite a lot. That's a whole other thing than I'm still separated and providing a ministry, sure, but so talk a little bit about what is it like when you're literally playing and singing there for someone that's close to passing away. That's intimate. That's very intimate.
It is. It's an intimate time for the family, and I do find often the family is at a loss about what to do. And because it is strange. It's like, we're used to going to dinner at someone's house. We're not used to going and keeping vigil as they die. What do we do? So I free flow things. I make things up. It's spontaneous, and that will take the form of a song, or it's a picture that pops in my head. Like there was a family last month, and the mother was dying of Alzheimer's. And the dad, God bless him, had years of accompanying his wife and living his vows, though she had not been able to talk with him or communicate and didn't remember. And the kids were there and the grandkids were there, and I got to show up and And I went in the back room where she was laying in bed, and they expected her to pass away pretty quickly. And I was telling the grandkids, I mean, these thoughts just come to mind. I said, this is such an honor for you to be here. I mean, she's getting ready to pass into eternity. And when she does, and this picture comes to mind, if you have ever seen like an image of something rising above the mist, whether it's a plane or, even in science fiction, a spaceship rising above the clouds, I've seen something like that. But I was picturing the soul of their grandmother and this man's wife and my friend's mother, rising above the mist of Alzheimer's as she's leaving the earth. And I'm telling the kids, I go, I don't know how I know this, but I really believe that she's going to see you here. She's going to see the people who want to be here but can't be in the room right now. And she's going to be so thankful to think that you were there here in this room right now. And I just say those kind of things, and then I sing a song. Well, the dad, the husband, I think they were married 58 years. And wow. I said, I hope you don't mind if I this thought came to mind, what she might sing to you. So just go with it. Just pretend. And I start singing this, look at you, living the vows that we spoke so long ago. Look at you living them out. I can't tell you how thankful I am. I mean, it was something along those lines where I'm wanting to blubber because he's holding her hand. It's like, and that's you could do those things. And then he says, can you sing? And he starts naming these songs because I didn't know she was a music teacher or that she was really into it. And he goes, could you sing You Are My Sunshine? And I go, yeah. So the whole group starts singing You Are My Sunshine to her. And I said, I'm not going to do the second verse because that's too depressing. But let's do another song. So then he goes, how about She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain? Which made me laugh because it's like, do, say, do. So we start singing She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain. And then we got to the verse, she'll be riding 6 white horses when she comes. I never thought of the glory side of that song that way. Yeah. It was perfect. And then I said, okay, have you chanted or sung or prayed a chaplet of divine mercy? And they say no. And I said, let's do that now. So after the fun songs, we all chanted. I led the chant, and this little boy, I'm sitting down, he's like, his mouth is level with my ear, and I'm telling you, I've never heard a family sing so loudly any time I've ever been in any house. And it was like they were belting this chaplet of mercy. Wow. And the dad, who's a deacon, said, well, I think it's time to go because we have to leave. And then they all said goodbye. They all said goodbye to Grandma, and I got to say goodbye to her, and she died 2 hours later. And I love the chance to accompany and be spontaneous.
That's people are, from what I've seen, are oftentimes maybe not the very immediate family, but the, the grandchildren and the cousins and it's a scary thing to have the thought of someone's dying and to be present when that happens. What a blessing, though, that I think it can be for not just, obviously the person, moving on to heaven, but my wife's grandfather, he was at home. The whole family was around him saying the rosary the moment he passed away. I'm thinking, yeah, sign me up for that. I don't know how you get that to happen, but that's incredible. I mean, so that's just a very intimate, very, special moment to be present for something like that.
And sometimes there's a fear too. I think just in regular situations where people are not sure what to say or what to do. Other situations that this little girl asked me to come sing for her family, and her dad had taken his life 2 weeks before. And I didn't know what I was going to say, but the mom, the grandparents, they all gathered in the living room, and I show up just saying, God, you have to help me. And I get in the house, and I experienced all these words of consolation and direction. Like I was talking as if I knew something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like one child was not in the house, had not been around. I said, you have to let people grieve the way they grieve because it's different for each other. And I was saying things to the grandparents and the daughter, and it was like my head's empty. And then a farmer in Iowa had taken his life, and the priest said, we got to get him to come to church. I said, no, we have to go to their house. So he drove me out to the farm, and the widow, the children, the grandchildren were all there. This is 2 days after this happened. Wow. And I led for an hour in the living room. And the priest said, this is why you came. It wasn't for the mission at the church. It was for this family. I know my head is empty, and I get to experience new words of consolation and hope and inspiration and comfort that flow through me. So for me, it totally encourages my faith because I know my head is empty. And here comes all these words, it's like, so I can get these people in that Iowa farmhouse. Had them all laughing. We were crying. We were singing. It was like somehow God did something, and I know it's not me.
As a musician myself, that's scary to me to think of not having some sort of plan, even if it's a loose plan.
Yeah, I get scared of plans. Those make me scared. Yeah, because I know that my brain tells me I'm going to mess them up, so I get scared of the formality.
So, but there's such genuineness though when you allow yourself to just kind of let go and do that. That's
okay. There's a recording that I did a long time ago, and I had the refrain, all will be well. I don't know if you've heard this song, and I'll try to look for it later. It's on the website somewhere.
Yeah, I've probably heard it.
But I had the refrain down. So I'm at the studio, and I start playing the piano, which I wish I could play piano, but I'm playing at the piano, and I'm singing the refrain, and unbeknownst to me, this guy hits record. So I'm singing, and I make up all the verses, and the song ends. And when this company wanted to produce it, they said, you cannot re-record that song. You can't, because it was spontaneous.
Yeah, there's no way you're going to capture that again.
Now I worked on songs on the same recording, and everybody would come up and say, oh, I love All Will Be Well. No, that's the one I didn't work on. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
People tend to, and if they say, I want you to do this song or that song, it's always disappointing because I never remember my own songs. I just make up new ones.
Well, we successfully butchered one of your
No, you
songs.
didn't. That's not right to say that. I really liked it. It was fun to listen to it done with someone actually felt like you were free to do what you wanted on it, and it sounded really good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So tell us, you mentioned your grandmother, and I think you told me earlier there was a story about Mother Teresa that was behind that.
Yes. When I talk about wanting to be there for someone who passed away, and I say I missed this with my grandmother because someone broke into her house and took her life. They're probably looking for stuff to sell for drugs or something. They caught him that night. He was in prison. He was on death row, and I was noticing different family members grieving in different ways because there are no rules to grieving. That's important to know. I had to battle through my own PTSD because when you lose a loved one violently, you have that. It's just, I had nightmares, I had panic attacks, and I didn't know how to make it stop. And I talked to this priest who said, you need to stop imagining what happened that night. You weren't there. And if you were, the killer would say one thing, your grandmother would say another, and you would say something else. You weren't there, so you can't be there by reimagining it. Now, that was really good. But one more time, I imagined writing a letter to my grandmother. Now, her name was Agnes Mary. We called her Grandma Aggie. And I wrote this letter, because that's the way you can grieve, and I imagined her responses. I don't have visions or anything, but I want to be a man of vision. So I said, Grandma, is that you? And I imagined her answering, who'd you think it was, Abraham Lincoln? Which I thought, it sounded like her, but I thought it would be more solemn, because it's like, you died. And so I said, I'm sorry about what happened. And she said, I feel sorry for y'all. All you see is what happened on Earth's side. You don't know what happened on Heaven's side. I said, well, I'm sorry that you died alone. She said, I didn't die alone. I go, yes, you did, Grandma, you died alone. She goes, read my lips, I didn't die alone. I'll tell you what happened that night. She said, first, I was so angry at that young man. And the next thing I know, it's like time stopped. Everything stopped. And I see Jesus and Mary in the room. And my first thought is, oh my gosh, Jesus and Mary are here and I forgot to clean the house. And then the next thing was, it was so comfortable to have them there that it was no problem at all. And I said, what are you doing here? And Mary says, we're here because you asked us to be. And she said, when did I ask you to be here? And she said, every time you said, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. My grandmother said, am I dying? I don't feel like I'm dying. And she said, the Virgin Mary said, well, there's something we have to do first. And my grandmother said, what, pack a bag? And they both laughed at my joke. And then Jesus walked over to the bed, touched her on the cheek, and he said, Aggie, will you honor the suffering I endured? And she said, yes. He said, unite your suffering with my own. Aggie, would you honor the humiliation I endured? And she said, yes. He said, unite your humiliation with my own. Aggie, would you honor my death and resurrection? And she nodded, and he said, unite yourself to me. Today you're my gift to the Father. And he picks her up in his arms. Or he said, say with me the words that I said from the cross. And she said, forgive him because he doesn't know what he's just done. And then Jesus said, you are my gift to the Father. And he picked her up in his arms. And she said, time started up again. And she looked around to see how horrible it all looked. And she said, what about my children? Who will take care of my children? And she said, you and I will, Aggie. And she gave her a kiss on the cheek. And then she was in heaven. And what I said something like, I imagined her saying, so you have to tell the family to forgive this young man. I said, well, she said, if you don't forgive him, you can't be here with me. Everything's turned around here. It's an honor for me if he comes to heaven because you pray for him. And it was just something along those lines. Anyway, I didn't have any panic attacks after that night. I had peace. And one of my siblings called, who lived in another country, crying that same night, saying, the devil's taunting her. What good did your grandmother's prayers do? Look what happened. And I said, oh, let me read this to you. And she said, thank you, that's all I needed. And it's like, so in any case, there's a couple other things that would be good to share, where I went into the chapel after a panic attack at this time. It was fall. And I went in the back of the chapel and looked up to the front, waited for my eyes to adjust to the sanctuary candle because all the lights were out. And I'm anxious, and I'm praying for my family not to get the cancer of hatred. And I feel like the Virgin Mary, again, I don't have visions, but I imagined her saying, Michael, you're so anxious for your family, but you can't change any heart but your own. And if you try to manipulate the conversion of another heart, it's almost as if you tried to paint the leaves of autumn, and the result will be just as messy. She said, if you look at the colors of fall, it's like one leaf changing signals the leaves around it, and you see color sweeping through a grove of trees. She said, you be the first leaf to change, and the fragrance of your conversion will inspire conversion in those around you. And I remember thinking, I got to write that down because it sounds so good, but I didn't have to because someone came in the chapel, turned on the light, and that's when I saw, out of the whole chapel, I made my way in the dark to the only seat where someone left a leaf on the railing, and it was bright red orange. And I put it in my prayer book until it disintegrated, but I still have it, and I give it to people all the time like I just gave it to you. And I pray that when you see the colors of fall, that you remember to be the first leaf to change. Wow. And anyone listening to this, by the way. But that was the same time Mother Teresa was coming to San Francisco. I was in Oakland, discerning the possibility of being a Dominican brother with the Western Province Dominicans. And Mother Teresa was coming to San Francisco for the final vows of one of the sisters. And I had seen a documentary where there was bombing in Beirut, and she had to get the children out of a hospital. And the guy said, you can't go, there's bombing going on. And she said, I've asked the Blessed Virgin to stop the bombing by 12 noon tomorrow, so can we go then? And he goes, if the bombing stops, Mother, I will personally drive you in. So bombing stopped, they took the kids out. So I said, okay. I was taking a class on Mary, and I said, okay, Mary, I'm going to try this out. I want to meet Mother Teresa, and I want you to pray for that to happen because I want her to pray for my family to not get the cancer of hatred. Pray for the killer. And So I go to this vow listening thing. The sisters asked me to hand out parking permits because San Francisco has no parking. And at the end, I said, I didn't get a seat. So they take me up to the front. And there's a statue of Mary with both hands open, like, hey, you like the seats I got you? And I see the bishops and everybody coming in. Then I see all the flashes going, but you can't see because she's so short. So she gets up to the front. And I noticed at the end of Mass, when she gets up to talk, or got up to talk, I looked over at the bishop and the priest, and all of them had their hands on their heart, and they were leaning out of their chairs to hear every word from this woman who was saying what? I was naked and you clothed me. I was hungry and you fed me. I was, stranger and you welcomed me. Basically the things they say, but they were listening to it spoken with an authority that blew them away. Anyway, so she's handing out miraculous medals at the door, and there's 1,000 people there. And I told the sisters, I was hoping to talk with her about this. And I go, but I have to go to a class. And they go, we'll tell her, go in the chapel at the convent. She'll be there next. But if you have to leave, we'll tell her the intention. I said, okay. So I go to the convent chapel, and there's another statue of Mary with her hands open. And I go, well, here I am, but it's time to go. I have to leave. And it was, thank you. Anyway, this was pretty good. So I walk out in the hallway, and someone's coming in the front door, so I back into a door, and it opens, and 2 people walk out, and Mother Teresa waves me into the room. So I go into the room and tell her what happened to my grandmother, tell her her name. She said her sister's name was Agnes too. And she said, now my Agnes is in heaven with your Agnes. And we're holding hands and praying for the killer and for my family. And she straightens up, and she puts her hand on her heart and does a sweeping motion up into the air, and she says, tell your family to forgive this man from the heart, and their pain will be lifted, as she raised her hand up in the air. And I said, well, we don't hate him anymore. And then she held up a crooked finger between us, shaking it. She said, not enough not to hate. Tell your family to forgive this man from the heart. And she put her hand on her heart again. And she said, and their pain will be lifted. And she lifted her hand up. And then it was time to go. And when I got across the Bay Bridge in time for class, which is a miracle in itself, the teacher comes out. Has anyone ever asked the Virgin Mary to pray for something and had it happen? And so I raised my hand. But I've experienced her words to be true, because he was just let off death row. And Texas tends to kill people. Yeah. I'm from there, so I'll mess with that. But they let him off. And I was so excited, I knew that I'd forgiven him from my heart. And I tried to visit him at the jail when he was on death row, but didn't work out to do. So we just told a message to the chaplain to give him that I think my grandmother wants him in heaven. And that's so much better than an injection or just hatred. Because I see the difference in how family members are when they've held on to the hatred for him and what it's done to their life. Versus forgiving. It doesn't mean what he did was okay. It's not okay. And this is for anybody listening to this. If you've suffered tragedy, I'm telling you, God has brought good out of this evil that was done to my grandmother and our family. So he wants to do that through you. He wants to do it through me. And that's the whole question of will good come out of it or not, is if we are willing to let it. He would never allow it unless he knew that he could. But part of it's us. Like, how do you bring beauty out of evil? Well, God mixed with a willing heart creates beauty. And I've seen it. So it's like, there's also things connected with Sandy Hook that was like the weekend of Sandy Hook, the tragedy. The priest in Florida where we were said, I want everybody to offer their communion today for the families grieving at Sandy Hook. And I thought, what a great idea. And immediately in my mind, no vision, but in my mind, this river of light goes by, and these little kids are running up to the camera, so to say, and they're all out of breath because they've been playing or something, but they're going, hey, it's okay, we're all here. And they run up, and one gets real close and says, how can I explain it? It's like the worst evil anyone can do on earth is nothing more than the shadow cast by a single grain of sand on a bright sunny beach. The love of God is so much bigger. If you knew my brain, the fact that I can remember that line, I'm just telling you that says it. So anybody listening, your next homework assignment is this. You picture the greatest evil that's happened in your life, or the world, or the country, whatever. You pick it. Whatever makes you discouraged the most. I want you to give it color. I want you to give it shape. And I want you to get to the nearest Catholic church that you can think of. Next chance. You can do it from your bedroom too, because just aim toward a tabernacle, which is basically every wall in your house, every window, because we're surrounded. But you put that shape, that color, that form of that evil between you and Jesus, because if it's bothering you, it is between you and Jesus. And as long as you focus on that, it will continue to grow in strength. But I want you to do this. Look through it. And look through the walls of your house. Look through the tabernacle. It doesn't matter. Look through it and worship God through it. I'm not saying to deny that it's there. I'm not saying to suppress it or anything else. Look it straight on and then go through it. You praise God through that tragedy, and it will automatically begin to take its proper shape, which is nothing more than the shadow cast by a single grain of sand on a bright sunny beach. Not to dismiss it, I don't mean that. It's to honor God, who is so much bigger.
I have nothing to say to that.
We can go for hours. We can go for hours. But I'm just telling you, like, if I croak on the way home, at least you can share that story. Because to me, I've been training little kids. I'll tell little kids to, I want you to put one of your parents in one hand and one in the other. I want you to just hold their souls in your hand, and we're in adoration. I said, I want you to just adore Jesus with me through your parents, and you're asking him to bless them. And you're just like, you can do so many things with the imagination. So you have all these little kids, first grade up to eighth and not whatever, and they're just holding their hands out. And you know sometimes their moms and dads aren't living together, or they're not speaking, or they're not living at all. Some have passed away. And here they are. It's like, oh, there you go. You know, like there's something you can do. Yeah, so
I think that, you know, one of your, and I'm not going to phrase this correctly, because my brain is less full than your brain for sure. But
bandwidth is full, I think, on all of us.
The recent study that came out, I think it was a Pew study that was Catholic focused, and it was about the Eucharist and the belief in the Eucharist. And I can't recite all of the, you know, the actual stats, but because it was to me it was just devastating that it would be such a low number that even practicing Catholics had, you know, the numbers were so high that they still didn't believe in the real presence of the Eucharist. And I don't even know what I want to ask you, but that
I should tell you what happened. The difference between when I didn't believe and the ordinary miracle that happened when I began to believe. For me, it's I told my dad, if the Eucharist divides the churches, why don't we get rid of it? We could all get along. And I was 25 years old. Okay, it also happened to be the same time in my life when I asked Jesus to protect me from his mother, because I thought she was trying to steal his glory. And I said, Jesus, does it matter to you if I love her or not? Because I think she's trying to steal your glory. So protect me from her, but let me know if you want me to love her. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. So they were laughing because I'm born on March 25th. And so around that same time was when I said that to my dad, who said, look, all I can tell you is pray and ask God. So as a Catholic, I would sit in the back of church, cross my arms, judge the priest, the readers, the singers, everybody else, and then leave feeling empty and judge the church, that it wasn't real. Nobody meant it. But I started to ask this one question with my arms crossed and attitude of arrogance. So, God, what's the Eucharist? And then nothing. Next week, come to Mass. I still ask it. So, okay, what's the Eucharist? Like what, you know? And then it was weeks. It might have been a month or two. I'm at Mass, and the priest is speaking the words of consecration, and a tear falls from my eye. And I brushed it away because I wasn't feeling any emotion. And then I didn't think anything of it till the next week when another priest is speaking the words of consecration, and another tear fell from my eye. And I brushed it away thinking, like, I must have an eye infection, you know. But it only happens during the consecration. And then the next week, I think it was, the priest was speaking the words of consecration, And again, I don't have visions, but my imagination's been wild my whole life. And in my imagination, there was a drive-in movie screen size behind the priest, and it was the Last Supper, and Jesus was speaking in Aramaic, but it was coming through the priest's mouth in English. This is my body, you know. And I remember sitting up a little bit in the pew, like looking around slowly, side to side, like, I'm at the Last Supper? Like, like what? I'd never, like, is everybody know that? Like, are we at the Last Supper? And then the next week, I come in and I go up to receive. In those days, I received always on the hand. And a woman was giving the Eucharist. And when she put the Eucharist in my hand, her hand quickly, like in my mind's eye, not a vision, but it turned into one of the apostles at the Last Supper with the fisherman's robe. And I remember going like, oh, I'm at the Last Supper? Like, again, it was like, I didn't know that's a church teaching. I didn't know the church teaches heaven and earth come together and at the Mass. And I didn't know that. I didn't know it's time travel. It's the Annunciation, it's the birth, it's the preaching, it's the passion, it's the resurrection, death and resurrection, it's everything. Like, oh my gosh, we're time traveling. So from then on, I said the exact same words. But instead of crossing my arms and saying it with arrogance, I just didn't cross my arms, but it's almost if you'd imagine me holding my hands up, cupped before me, but my attitude was like that. And it was like, so, God, what's the Eucharist? You know, I could ask it arrogantly, or I could ask it in an open way, and you have a better chance. So I'm 60 this March 25th. I was 25 when that happened. I don't feel like I've even begun to enter the mystery of it, but I feel like I would die for it. It makes me weep. I feel nothing, but I sense it in my bones that it's part of my mission before I die to call other souls to be open to that. Because you can't, I tell people, don't try to feel anything, because that's not the point. Feelings aren't God. Just be open. It's just availing yourself to the possibility, that's all. Mm-hmm. And then he does the rest. Because if nothing's there, then what's there to be afraid of being open to it? Yeah. Because there is someone there. There's somebody there. And like one night in Missouri, I had the chance to fill in at adoration, and it was 11 o'clock, and I'm in there, and I was by myself with the Eucharist. Usually there's two people, and I'm sitting in there, and typical thing, I don't feel anything. I said, Jesus, I'm just going to tell you, I don't feel you here, and I believe you're here, but I don't feel a thing. Amen. And I love you, but I don't feel like I love you. I'm just saying it out loud. And I praise you, but I don't feel like praising you. So I'm going to tell you I love you, and you have to make it real because I don't have anything to give you. I'll just say the words. So I start saying, I love you. I love you. And I said that out loud. And then I started to sense that somebody was saying it with me. Now, not with my ears, but in my heart. So I imagined, oh yeah, well, the Virgin Mary's always in adoration. Probably Mary, you know. Oh, maybe it's Joseph. Good Saint Joseph. Or maybe my guardian angel. And in an instant, it occurred to me that it was coming from the monstrance. That he was saying it back to me. And I was like thinking like, well, I don't understand it in my mind. And he goes, Michael, be quiet. Too many words. Like, how can you say that you love me when you don't know me? And how can you thank me for my mercy when you won't let me have mercy on you? So you just be silent and let me tell you that I love you. And so I sat there and I said, well, but I'm mean in traffic. Sometimes I think dark thoughts, you know. And he just kept saying, "I love you," and I'm like, I'm crying, and I go, "Thank you." And he goes, "You're welcome," something like that. But it was like when things come to mind, when you're feeling dead, when you're feeling empty, it's a perfect stage for a surprise from God. But if you don't avail yourself to that, you miss the surprise. You miss the chance for the surprise. So the people, to me, it's more normal than not to feel nothing, to not feel love, to not feel like praising God. That's totally human nature. That's normal. It's a gift when you feel it, because what's happened is there is a wind of the Holy Spirit is blowing through the sails, and it's moving you to praise God. It's like, I can't praise God and feel praising God like I want to. I can't experience that without His grace. So it's like, if I feel nothing, at least, well, I can give Him my nothingness or my emptiness, and He surprises me with things like that. Like, I love it when it's not me coming up with something, but it's like I'm going, kind of like I'm at the Last Supper, what? These things that you don't expect. And I really believe there's going to be more of those moments as things get darker in the church. He's going to be giving more of those moments to the people who avail themselves to His grace. I was at Mass in Edmond, Oklahoma, Sunday morning. Know the choir director, great choir. It was a regular Sunday Mass. They're singing the Gloria when all of a sudden, I'm not expecting this, because I know the choir, they're good, but all of a sudden, I'm telling you, it is like bleachers flipped up into the clouds, and we had not only surround sound, but it was eternal kind of sound happening in the church in that Gloria. And if the teaching is that heaven and earth join for the Mass, I'm telling you that in that moment, my breath, I stopped, I couldn't sing, and I went, we have no idea what happens at Mass. That was the thought that came to mind, and I was in awe. And then it went away, and it was back to the regular choir. It was just this, I think it was like God lifted the veil. Like, oh, by the way, want to know where you are? It's like, that kind of thing. So after Mass, I go up to the choir director and I say, good job. And she goes, what was that? And I played dumb. What was what? She said, you didn't hear that? I said, what? She said, during the Gloria. She said, that was more than us. And I said, thank you. I heard it, but I didn't want to say anything in case you hadn't heard it. But it was I could imagine people falling to the ground. I'm telling you, all God has to do is lift a little corner of the veil. So this stuff about Pew Research, I don't care. Lifting the veil research, you're going to see people like praising God and just weeping. And I'm telling you, it's so, but only those people who continue to avail themselves to this mystery that feels empty, dead, old, obsolete, all those things that the devil wants to say, this is what it is. It's not true. It's a living time of worship that's connecting heaven and earth. All of your ancestors who've gone before you, they're worshiping with you every Mass you go to.
See, and that's the thing to me is that everybody goes through, a dark period. Some longer than others. I mean, you study the saints, and almost all of them had a period of darkness but it's knowing what comes after that, and to persevere and to push through it, and even if you don't feel like it, like you said,
especially you get more merits. I think you get way more points.
And if you're not working it off for yourself, you're working it off for for somebody. Yeah. So that's the hard part. It's very hard for me. Very hard for me.
Honestly, okay, let's talk like family life, marriage. Okay, the truth is we live our vows when we don't feel a thing, because that's what a vow is for. It's like I made a promise, and my wife and I, it's like 25 years of marriage. There's seasons. It's cyclical. It's like I feel nothing, but I'm here. Exactly. And I'm committed. This is a sacrament. Like we've both said what we don't recommend any couple say to each other. At the same time, we've said, I don't feel like being married to you. And she said it, I said it. And then we looked at each other like, oh, like we almost like went to the edge of a cliff, and it was like, that's scary.
That's scary. We'll never do that again.
But then we said, but we have a sacrament, so we can't get out of it. Let's make it good. It's like we have to make it good. And now we're on the laughter and love side of that, but we both felt it. And I don't think people should say that to each other, but at least acknowledge that put it this way. When somebody feels that way, just go, oh, well, there you go. That's marriage. And then you move into the love and the romance, and it's like it's pretty amazing how and it's the same thing with the Mass. Like, I feel nothing, I still go. And because I still went, I had a veil lifted.
Yeah.
I had an inspiration. I had other things that happened, and it pulls me on a different level. It's not feelings. And your singing group's awesome. Sometimes it's very painful to listen to music at Mass, but I still go. You know what I'm saying? It's like sometimes it's painful for people when I sing because I don't stop. But and they'll just go, "What? That's a crazy song! Like he's just making it up." And I am. But for some people that's helpful. For others it could be very irritating, and they just want Latin chant. So we all continue. Yeah.
And I've always thought, and this may not be right. I don't know, but I think for me maybe it is. At least I hope that it is when you go through a period of darkness and then, like you said, you do get a little corner of the veil lifted and you get some inspiration again. I feel like that you don't ever go back down to the level that you were. You're elevated a little bit higher. And then that next dark level, you don't ever really, or at least I hope that I don't ever completely retreat, all the way backwards.
You might be tripped and fall back, which is not something that you do. But the thing is, and it can happen so many different ways. I also want to say something to the men. Because there are hardships in families that do not have to be so hard. And it's because we are or are not standing in the proper place in the family. Many of us have allowed the women to lead, which they do because they share in the priesthood because of the baptism. But in every family, I heard a couple saints have said, the husband and father is the bishop of the church, the home church, the domestic church. And the wife is like the priest who operates on her baptismal priesthood. The children are the congregation. As long as the man is connected through the sacraments to the parish, and the family's connected through the man in proper order, the enemy cannot harm that family to the same degree that it would otherwise. He cannot. If that husband and father sets a parameter, sets a boundary, the enemy knows the hierarchy structure, and the man is the head of the family. Our culture says everything differently now, but what would the enemy want? Let's disorder that unity because they don't have to listen. When the man's not taking the proper stand to be the head of the house, spiritually speaking, the enemy harasses that family, and much of it is needless. I did want to say that because it's like I was walking on the Camino, and that's 500 miles, no blisters, and I had 43 days. Most people do it in 30, but I got this great gift to go. The whole way this message came to mind and heart. It's time to enter the ark. And that's consecrating ourselves to Mary like Jesus did. If we're going to follow Jesus, we have to do it. He gave himself utterly, completely, profoundly, every way a human being can. He grew in her womb. We have to consecrate ourselves that profoundly to her to follow Jesus perfectly. That's critical now because I believe a triumph is in motion. And it's much better to be in the heart that's going to triumph than outside the heart, if you want to hear confusion. So that's the whole 500 miles from day one. Halfway through, it was get as many men as you can to pray at least one St. Michael prayer to defend their family spiritually every day. And that's what we're about to launch.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. We'll leave a link to that site. Once it
I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know. We need things like that. I don't want to get into it too deep, but you mentioned Exodus 90. My son and I are doing Exodus 90. Many of you out there probably have not heard of that. Look into it. It's a 90-day spiritual exercise for men. That you're greatly encouraged to do it as a fraternity of men. Be it, really it should be more than two, just for accountability purposes.
It's pretty awesome, father and son doing that.
But yeah, so they recommend 5 to 7 in a group or more, if you have that capability. But men out there, I want to. I'm doing it this year. I started on the Monday that would lead up to the last day. Day 90 is Holy Saturday, So day 91 is Easter Sunday. So
yeah, same here.
So it's difficult. It's very difficult.
It is.
But it's, there's certain things that there's three processes to it anyway. One of them is called asceticism. Basically, it's depriving yourself of luxury, and things like no TV, no movies, no, take cold showers, and everybody's going, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And, but you don't realize how much time you have. And when you free yourself of these things that distract you from maybe in a lot of cases reality, that's another spot that God can reveal himself to you. It's another spot that he can lift a little corner of that veil that you never even knew that maybe was there all along and you didn't even know it. Yeah. So I've learned that. This is the beginning of week 4, I think.
Yeah.
And week 1 and 2, man, it was awesome. It was like, we got this. This is going to be easy. Last week was tough. So got to get back in the zone this week, but it's an incredible thing.
Yeah.
It's so anyway, look into it. I'm going to be asking hopefully some of you that are listening to this to venture off into it next year. So it's an incredible process. It just really helps you kind of open your eyes.
Yeah, somebody could sign up on the app and pay $10 a month and get emails from them, even if you're going to try to do a version of it yourself.
Yeah,
I've heard men say that they can't do a cold shower. I didn't do that the first year. I did lukewarm showers, but then living in Arizona, if it's in the summertime, you can turn the cold water on and it's hot.
It's still warm.
It's still hot.
Well, I'll be real honest. I not the very first morning, but it's cold right now. I mean, in Arkansas, it's been 20 degrees, and when I turned the water all the way over to all the way cold, it wasn't even doable. I could not do it. Yeah. So there's a little bit of
you
warmer.
learn different things. Like I put my head under the spout,
exactly
and then I can do that much. Or it's just like if you can picture the expression on your face, like you can't see that on the podcast, but it's like sheer horror. Like this is wrong.
I used to shave in the shower. I don't shave in the shower anymore. I don't stay in there that long.
It makes it really short.
I do cheat though. I exercise first in the mornings, and then I go take a cold shower. So at least I'm warmed up. I couldn't get right out of bed, I don't think, and do it. But,
that's so funny.
But it's an incredible experience.
Invigorating.
It really is.
When I did finally do the cold showers, it was like you just feel really energized, And
you do get kind of used to it, so it's not.
Well, I read something of a man that's done them for 2 years now. He's only done cold showers as a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And he said, well, my wife was traveling and my 3-year-old vomited on the wall and I had to get up and clean it up with Lysol and all this stuff, and I got it on me. I had vomit on me at 2 a.m. and I said, I've earned a warm shower. And I went in and said, dang it, and he made it a cold shower.
It's one of those things, though, that's that discipline thing, I guess. And I've heard stories of, guys that they fast that's one of the things we're supposed to do is fast Wednesday and Friday.
Yeah,
and
that's been hard for me.
I kind of do the keto thing sort of halfway, so that hasn't been too bad.
Yeah.
But, I've heard stories of, a guy was, fasting every Friday or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe through Lent or something like that. And, at first it starts out easy and then all of a sudden, well, let's see, I can't eat meat on Friday, so I'll go and get some breadsticks from Little Caesars. And then all of a sudden you realize, maybe you're abstaining from meat, but you're really not fasting.
It's a luxury fast.
It is. So you really...
Well, thanks for that challenge.
Yeah.
I won't get breadsticks.
No more
I haven't done
breadsticks.
that, but it's like I have to think about how do we compensate. We do like comfort.
Yeah.
That is human nature, and that's part of the draw of this, I think, because once you do it, you realize I don't want to be a wimp.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not Mr. Exercise. Other guys they do it every day. It's totally fun for them.
Yeah.
Other guys can't give up alcohol. I hate alcohol. That's nothing for me to give up. Sports, I'm a sports idiot. It's like I saw my dad watch one football game. I was 35. Like, what are you doing? None of my 5 brothers, none of us did sports. None of us paid attention to them. So that's nothing for me. But it kills this other guy.
Last weekend, Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl wasn't so hard, but that day one was the college football national championship game. LSU. I mean, that killed me.
That's something, but you see, but it's like, well, each of us will have something that we have to work on.
Yeah,
and,
it was good.
And it's just funny.
But, well, man, we could sit here and talk literally. It's been 50 minutes. We could go on and on. It's late at night. I took up this poor man's time.
You can edit this into a few podcasts if you want. I was thinking of the one that we're going to unveil is called First Defenders. And so when you can look for that.
Yeah, definitely. Send that to me. I will.
And it won't be like Exodus 90. I want to make sure people don't freak out. So this one, if you, like the guys that go, I can't do Exodus 90, they at least can do First Defenders, which is 3 men praying 3 prayers for 30 days. Can you handle that? And you do it in your own house.
Yeah.
One of them is a St. Michael prayer. They're prayers of protection and binding, and they're real simple, all approved.
How important is that today?
It's critical.
Holy moly.
And we're going to give some other information, too, along with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
it.
It's time for, just to finish off with kind of what you were saying. It's like you said I just had to say that, and I believe it's true. It's time for, us as I'm a father of 5, and it's time for us as fathers and not to be the head of the household, but to be what we're called to be. I mean, we're called to be that for our family, for our family's sake, and for the sake of everybody else's family. So thank you.
Yes,
that was fun.
Thanks for doing this. I think it's great you're doing a podcast like this.
Yeah, we'll see. See what happens. So
we will.
Yeah.
We will. Thank you very much.
So thanks for sharing with us this weekend at Mass. It was fantastic. Thanks for coming through the little town of Conway, Arkansas. And
great place to come.
We will. I'll do a short outro here in just a little while, but thanks for coming, Michael John Poirier.
Thank you
so much.
Thanks.
Well, as always, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We love you guys. We're praying for you. We ask that you pray for us as well. A big thanks to Michael Poirier for spending time doing this. We can't thank you enough for that. I really enjoyed the weekend spending time with him. I'll leave some information about his ministries, his website, below in the show notes. So again, thanks, and God bless.
Please load our free Bob and Penny Lord app. Here's how to download our free Bob and Penny Lord app. Simply, with your iPhone or Android device, go to the App Store, search for Bob and Penny Lord app, and download it. It's that simple. Here's what you can do with our free Bob and Penny Lord app. Number one, there's a link to our marketplaces, our websites, our blog, and this podcast. The second link is to our Bob and Penny Lord TV channel, where you can access all of our videos as seen on EWTN, plus a whole lot more. Thank you very much.